Good evening, everyone.
I
I want to thank you on behalf of the Wyandot County Historical Society for attending tonight. This is the first in our 2023 Thursday evening at the museum series. We've kind of pared back a little bit from previous years. Instead of having 2 a month, we're going back down to 1. But I think Bonnie and I worked on a really great schedule of a lot of really interesting programs coming up that I think that you'll enjoy. So we've got some things, and we'll talk a little bit about some upcoming things as we go along. I know Bonnie has a couple words to say. Out on the table, we actually have, that you can take with you tonight, copies of our Thursday evening schedule, as well as the schedule of events for the coming year. Now, we may add a few things to that. We're discussing adding a couple programs up at the Overland Inn and possibly a couple additional summer single-day standalone programs here. So, keep your eyes peeled to the website and our Facebook page for additional upcoming events and more information about our programs. If I didn't put a plug in for the ice cream social on July 8th, I would hear about it from Nancy Sauer. So, a couple of our board members, our newer board members, Bitsy and Marty, have been really helpful in promoting the ice cream social and planning and preparing for it. So I think it's going to be bigger and better this year than in the past. So we've got a few other things coming up in the planning for that. So I'll let Bonnie.
Yeah. I just want to say a few words about our next Thursday evening, which is Thursday evening, June 15th, and it's going to be about the Holocaust, and there are actually going to be 3 presenters. Patty Davidson from the library, and if you live in Upper Sandusky, you probably know that she went all out and did a Auschwitz Holocaust exhibit at the library, and I think it actually has won some state awards. It was so good. So she's going to be one of our speakers, and she wants to focus on what happened to some of the people who actually survived Auschwitz, what happened when they went back home. And you think it was bad enough being in the extermination camp, but what happened to them afterwards is probably, or maybe even sadder. And then the another participant is going to be Ashley Webb Payton, and some of you may know her. She plays the harp, and she's a local woman. She has worked hard on she has a master's degree now from Bowling Green in history. So the Holocaust is sort of her specialty, and she wants to dig deeper about where did this idea come from, the size of the head and all that, why that meant something to the Germans, how they justified killing people. It wasn't just because they were Jewish, but she's dug deeper about that. And I'm the third person, and it just so happens that Tom and I are leaving at the end of the month. We will be in Auschwitz right before the next program. We're going on a tour, a World War II tour called The Rise and Fall of Hitler's Germany, and our very last stop is Auschwitz. So Tom and I will be flying back from Warsaw right before that program. So I just want to, since I've walked on the ground, I would like to say a few words about it. So hope to see you then. And one way to find out what's happening at the museum is to come to Thursday evenings, right? Now, did you have anything else? Okay.
I probably will later.
Yeah. Okay. So you all know Fred Malone. We feel very, very excited to have him. I know he's had some illness the past few weeks or so, but I don't know if you know, he not only does what he's doing tonight, but he also does other characters, and he can tell you more about it. I know he does Groucho Marx and James Pogue, and a Secret Service agent. Governor Cox. Anyway, he can. So Fred, are you still here?
Mr. Charley Wheeler.
Charlie. Charlie, are you here?
I'm here. I bring you greetings from Mount Ida. How are you this evening?
Fantastic.
I ran into Byron Obb the other day. I said, Byron, how are you? He said, well, Charlie, I'm suffering from overeating. I said, overeating? He said, yeah. I said, every night when I come home, my relatives are overeating. I'll say, by the way, Ludlow Bean won the mayor's race in Mount Ida last Tuesday, in case you hadn't heard. He won it by a landslide. Yeah, we're going to tell the other candidates as soon as we can get them dug out. Well, you know, my mama, she wrote me letters over the years, and I kept her letters. And in the last several years, I've written a few books about letters from Mama. And so tonight I wanted to share some of my favorite letters from Mama that she'd written to me. Anybody familiar with Mama's letters? You read some before? Mm-hmm. Good. Well, you know, I'm, as Miss Bonnie said, I'm getting over some illness, but we'll make it. If my voice starts to crackle, I'll just have a little drink. It isn't gin, it's water. And we'll continue to go on. Bonnie, how much time do I actually have?
You have about 45 minutes.
45 minutes. Okay, Mama gave me this. So I would run over and irritate people. So when the bell goes off, I'm done. I won't stop in the middle of a letter, but when the bell goes off, I'm done. Well, as I said, Mount Ida was my mama's home, and I spent a lot of time there as a youth. And when I went on the road, Mama would write me letters, and I kept them, as I said before. So we're going to read some tonight, and I hope you enjoy it. And oh, I see this is just like church. All the sinners are in the back. I know that for a fact because one of them's a friend of mine back there with that wild shirt on. That's all right, Phil. I love you. Dear 24-ounce jigger, Mama always wanted me to be a big shot. Now you have to pay attention. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Your father and I went dancing last night, and I had a wonderful time. We each went to different dance halls. Grandma Ogg was there, and she danced every dance, whether she had a partner or not. Leonard Box and his educated beaver furnished the music. Leonard played the violin while the beaver beat out the rhythm with his tail. For an encore, Leonard played the violin with his feet, and the beaver chewed down the bandstand. Now, Bertie Rod didn't have enough money to get into the hall, so she spent the evening outside looking in the window and dancing. She got pretty mad, though, when the band once played, "How Much Is That Doggy in the Window?" Elsie Crack dropped in today. She just had a finger wave. My, she looks really nice with her wavy fingers. She's getting an awful lot of wrinkles in her forehead. You know, she has so many now, she has to screw her hat on. Your father wants to take up flagpole sitting. I told him, go right ahead, but if he fell and broke both legs, not to come running after me. Well, son, I must close now. Go help your father. He just came back from the dentist, and his ears are hurting him. He said the drill didn't hurt a bit, but the dentist had the vise too tight. Love, Mama. Are we having fun yet? Okay. Dear Hickory, Mom always said I was a sweet little nut. Things are fine here in Mount Ida. She goes on. Dr. Beamish saved a life yesterday. A patient called him, but he couldn't make it. Doc has been practicing medicine for 20 years. Your father says as soon as Dr. Beamy stops practicing and goes to work, he'll call Doc. Doc got medicine in college for 4 years, but he never did get well. Leonard Box bought a new car yesterday. Then when he drove it downtown, he couldn't find any place to park. So he took it back and traded it in on one that was already parked. He's sort of worried though. His car can go 80 miles an hour, but the finance company has one that can go 90. Your father and I went over to see Wallace Swine's new baby. They called the child 6 7/8. Seems that when he was born, they couldn't think of a name, so they put a lot of names on slips of paper and drew them out of a hat. Well, son, I must close now. Go help your father. He'd been nipping again, and he said he thought he'd go upstairs and hit the bed. Well, he missed it. Dear hospital, Mama always said I had lots of patience. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Dr. Beamish finally cured Ludlow Bean of his insomnia. Doc made Mrs. Bean quit playing the bagpipes in bed. Byron Ogg dropped by today. My, he looked so haggard and worn out. Said he had no sleep last night. Seems he didn't get in till 4:30 in the morning, and as he was undressing, his wife woke up. She asked him if he was getting ready to go to work. So rather than excite her, he put his clothes back on and went to work. Whiskey almost broke up Wallace Swine's home the other day. The basement still blew up. Actually blew Wallace and his wife right up through the roof. Mrs. Swine was very happy about it because she said it's the first time in 12 years she and Wallace have gone out together. Leonard Box has a new invention. He's been feeding his chickens shredded racing forms. Now they are laying odds. Leonard's other idea didn't work out too well though. Leonard has a pet male electric eel. Because his eel was lonesome, Leonard got a female electric eel to keep the other one company. Now the idea failed because the male was AC and the female was DC. The other day I asked Leonard why he didn't go ahead and marry Elsie Crack, and he said, I've been thinking about it, but if I did, where would I spend my evenings? Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He put his hand in a horse's mouth to count the teeth. The horse closed his mouth, so now I got to count your father's fingers. Love, Mama. Dear son, Mama always said I was a ball of fire.
Oh, son.
Things are fine in Mount Ida, she goes on. Leonard Box and George Enthusiasm were fired from their job at the Mount Ida Creamery. Oh, this is bad. Leonard doesn't mind, though. He says he always wanted to be fired with enthusiasm. Didn't he a deal? Get it? Oh, my mama. My, we were all happy to hear that Elsie Crack has been named this year's Moose Sweetheart. Not by the lodge, but by a herd up in northern Canada. Elsie's boyfriend ran off with Elsie's best friend. She's terribly broken up about it, as she really misses her friend. Wallace Swine left town suddenly last week. He was coming home from a masquerade party, all dressed up in a suit of steel, armor, you know, when a fast freight train passed him with a huge electromagnet on one of the flat cars. The last we heard of him, he was in Topeka, Kansas, renting himself out as a cigar lighter. Wallace's wife misses him terribly. She says when she washes the dishes, he washed the dishes with her. And when she mopped up the floor, he mopped up the floor with her. They always quarreled a lot. Though they don't have the TV set, they always have the Friday night fights. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He and little Delbert Swine are out in the backyard playing stickball. Little Delbert just hit your father with a stick. You ought to hear him bawl. Might have to adjust the other cheek. Dear Hydromatic, Mama always wanted me to shift for myself. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Elsie Crack dropped by on Monday. My, she's getting so fat. If she gets married, they'll have to throw puffed rice. I told your father if Elsie is thinking of getting married, she ought to do something about her hairy arms. And your father says, she don't have hairy arms, she just has long sideburns. But Elsie's such a sweet girl, and she has a big heart. It's tattooed right in the middle of her back. Her big heart.
Oh.
When I told your father I thought Elsie's face was her fortune, your father said, it's too bad it runs into such a sorry figure.
Oh.
You gotta listen. We all feel so sorry for Wallace Swine. He saved up $40 of green stamps to get a new set of false teeth. But after licking all those stamps, he can't get his mouth open wide enough to put teeth in place.
I remember
Grandpa Og was arrested for riding the wrong way on a one-way street. The policeman asked Grandpa, said, didn't you see the arrows? Grandpa said, arrows? I didn't even see the Indians. Leonard Box has just invented a silencer for automobiles. Fits right over Elsie Crack's mouth. Last week, Ludlow Bean was thrown in jail. Now, as you know, Ludlow's hobby is hooking rugs. I'm sorry, I couldn't read my own writing. And they thought they caught him hooking a 9x12 from the Mount Ida Bonton. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He ate a big plate of elbow macaroni for supper. Now he's got a severe case of the bends.
Oh.
Lord, Mama. They once told Mama she ought to go on the road. She didn't. Dear engineer, Mama always wanted me to stay on the right track. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Your father was held up on the way home last night, and the robbers took all his money. He said it was a good thing he didn't have his gun with him, or they'd taken that too. Mrs. Byron Og told me she never knew where Byron spent his evenings until one night when she came home early, and there he was. But Byron and his wife made up all right. He waved to her and threw her a kiss from his cell. Byron has an awful complex about dirty ashtrays. He insists on emptying them all the time in his mouth. Grandpa and Grandma all were over for supper last night. Grandpa made out his will yesterday. It said, being of sound mind, I've spent all my money. Grandma Og says she is 95 years old and doesn't have an enemy in the world. Grandpa says she's right. They've all been dead for years. Turning the other cheek. Grandma's oldest boy came home last week for the first time since World War I. All these years, Grandma kept a light in the window for him. Isn't that nice? First thing she gave him when he got home was an electric bill of $3,000. Grandpa said when his boy left home, he was young and stupid. Now he's back and he's old and stupid. Well, son, I must go now and help your father. He was thrown out of a store today for just being friendly. Seems he went into an antique store and said, hey, what's new? A lot of brothers in the bunch, huh? Dear Rip, Mama always said someday I'd come apart at the seams. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Last night your father took me out. For a week he's had me locked in a closet. We ate at Wallace Swine's diner. You know, dine with swine? And believe you me, there were a few of them in there. Your father complained to Wallace about the flies being so thick in the restaurant. Wallace said to your father, what do you want, thin flies?
Oh.
Then when the waitress brought us up our soup, your father looked out the window and said, it looks like rain. The waitress said, nevertheless, we still call it soup in here. If my mustache falls off, we're going to keep right on going. Then your father got real mad and he said, see here, miss, there's a fly in my soup. And the waitress said, I'm not surprised, our chef used to be a tailor.
Oh.
Makes you think, don't it? Then Wallace came in and tried to sell your father a ticket to a big raffle they were having at the Widow Brown. But your father wouldn't buy one because he knew if he won, I wouldn't let him keep her. Leonard Box dropped by our table and he said he was mad at Elsie Crack because she threw his cuspidor away and he missed it. Elsie said, that's why I threw it away. You missed it too often. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He just stepped on his ear. We're having sweet corn and he dropped it on the floor.
Oh.
Yes, there's just a lot of motors. Dear kangaroo, Mom always said I was full of hops. And a lot of other things. Things are fine in Mount Ida, she goes on. Grandpa Ogg's wooden leg is bothering him again. Grandma Ogg hit him with it. Grandma's getting terribly absent-minded. Yesterday she wanted to boil some water, so she put the tea kettle in a rocking chair and sat on the stove. We didn't know she was getting hot until she started whistling. Looks like Leonard Box might marry Elsie Crack again. The other day he told her he'd go through anything with her. She said, let's begin with your bank book. I just don't know what he sees in her. She's so bow-legged, she couldn't stop a hog in a ditch. That's pretty bow-legged. She's really so bow-legged, her father hangs her over the door for good luck. Oh, Leonard says every time he goes to kiss her, she always removes her cigar first. That's nice. I told Leonard that before he marries Elsie, there was something he should get off his chest. That tattoo of Bertie Rod's name. That tattoo of Bertie Rod's name on his chest. Governor Cool broke up with Clara Kimball Moose. He found out she spent $250 a year on dresses. Now he's dating her dressmaker. Byron Ogg was arrested last week for selling canaries. The charge was misrepresenting and fraud. Seems they found out he was dipping sparrows in peroxide. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He just ate his toothbrush. He says he thought it was a hairy lollipop. Love, Mama. Dear X-ray. Mom always said I could see right through things. Things are fine in Mount Addie. She goes on. Your father has been going around all day wearing his golf socks. They got 18 holes. I'm really teed off. Leonard Box dropped by and told us about his new invention. He's trying to cross a centipede with a turkey. That way, everybody will get a drumstick. Nobody will buy Leonard's milk anymore, though. It's so blue. Seems his cows are discontented.
Oh dear. So blue.
I'm waiting on you. His other invention didn't work out so well. He tried to cross a parrot with an overcoat. The idea was that when somebody tried to steal your coat, it would holler, "Stop thief!" Good idea. Elsie Crack complained to a policeman that a man was following her. The policeman arrested the man for being intoxicated. The other day when Elsie ran away, her folks sent her a telegram. It said, "Do not come home and all will be forgiven."
Okay.
It's like your father always says, we all sprang from animals. Only trouble is, Elsie didn't spring far enough. The other night at supper, when I told your father the two things I cook best are meatloaf and apple pie, he said, well, which one is this? Grandpa was arrested last week. He was asked to donate something for the old ladies' home, and he tried to give him his wife. Well, son, I must close now. Go help your father. He spilled 2 giant economy-sized bottles of instant hair on his head. Now I have to find the scissors before he smothers. I need some of that. Dear Radium, Mama always said I was too hot to handle. Things are fine in Mount Ida. You know, I've never read a letter from Mama where things weren't fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Ludlow Bean is taking lessons in deportment. I had to look that up. 2 more lessons and he'll be deported. Byron Ogg was bragging about how he saved 10 cents yesterday. He walked home behind the bus. Said you haven't bought a 10-cent bus ticket for a while. Today his wife told him to run home behind the taxi and save $2. Mrs. Ogg's brother's coming to visit him next week. Byron wants him to feel right at home, so he's putting bars on the windows. Someone asked Byron if he knew what a lie detector was. He said, well, know what it is. I married one. Leonard Fox has been on a diet. My, he's so skinny now. When he has on his terry cloth robe, he looks like 2 pipe cleaners. He's so skinny, the girls all go crazy about him. Your father says all the girls are crazy about him because they can't resist anything that's been reduced. We had a slight accident the other day. Your father ran over Leonard's prize rooster. And he told Leonard he was sorry and would replace the rooster. Now he's out in the backyard practicing how to crow. I forgot to mention that Leonard's quite a bee bopper. All day long he sits out in the sun, and when a bee comes along, he bops it. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He and Grandpa Ogg are out in the backyard playing hopscotch. Every time your father takes a drink of scotch, Grandpa hops all over him. They just keep coming. Dear laryngitis, Mom always said I was a pain in the neck. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Bertie Rod dropped by the other day. My, she's a marvelous girl. Your father said it's a marvel anybody could be so repulsive. I told your father he shouldn't say such things. Bertie is really the salt of the earth. And your father said, yeah, and what a shaker it's in. I will say she seems to have a new boyfriend every week. She's been picked up so many times she's grown handles. You have to admit, though, she's nice looking. Looks a lot like her father, except she's got a bigger mustache. Leonard Bach still has his farm, you know. Last week he dyed one of his horses purple. He said he wanted a horse of a different color. You know, Leonard's always experimenting. Yesterday he crossed a raccoon with a skunk, but all he got was a dirty look from the raccoon. He has about 30 horses, so he opened a riding stable. As your father was his first customer, he went out in the barnyard and got on a horse. It walked about 6 steps and fell over. Your father went back and got on another horse. That one walked about 4 steps and fell down. Then Leonard said, don't take the ones in the middle or they'll all fall down. They'll all fall down in the middle. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He and Grandpa Ogg are out in the backyard with a big pot of alphabet soup. They're playing water Scrabble. Good morning. more groans in here tonight than the minister gets when he goes over 60 minutes. Dear Warden, Mom always said I was a gasser. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Elsie Crack got a job as a scarecrow in Grandpa Ogg's cornfield. She's been very successful. Not only did she stop the crows from stealing the corn, she scared them so bad they're bringing back corn they stole last summer. We're all waiting for Clara Gimble Moots, I love that name, Clara Gimble Moots, to get married. Goodness knows she's been asked often enough, every day by her mother and father. Leonard Bach says he's going to wind up an old maid. She's going to wind up an old maid. Your father says that sounds like fun. Why don't they get 2 keys and wind up 2 old maids? One of these days she'll find the right man, a man who likes antiques. Grandpa Ogg is still getting television on her glasses ever since she got struck with that bolt of lightning. But all these westerns are beginning to affect her. Lately she's been sitting in a rocking chair side saddle. She's the only old lady in Mount Ida with a buckskin shawl. Those westerns are hard on her glasses too. After each show she has to clean off the powder burns. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He's been playing tic-tac-toe. You see, he got a tick in his eye, stepped on a tack, and went right through his toe. Don't groan at my mama. Dear Perry, Mama always wanted me to be a mason.
Oh,
Perry.
Perry Mason.
Yeah, you're all old enough. Perry Mason. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Elsie Crack took her dog to a psychiatrist, but it didn't do any good. Her dog is not allowed on the couch. Then Elsie went to the same psychiatrist herself because she thought she had an inferiority complex. He couldn't help her. She doesn't have a complex. She's really inferior. There are a lot of sick folks in Mount Ida. When Mr. and Mrs. Wallace Slang came down home the other day with flu last week, Wallace apologized to the doctor for causing him so much trouble. The doctor didn't mind, though. He said it was just as easy to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Your father and I went over to Grandpa Ogg's last night to watch television on our glasses. We saw a new adult western sponsored by a nylon stocking company. It's called Have Run, We'll Travel. Grandma can even get color TV on her glasses now. She don't like it, though. She said that every time the peacock spreads its tail, it smears her mascara. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He and Grandpa Ogg have been playing hide and seek. Grandpa just took his cane and beat the hide off your father, and now he's going to seek an injunction. I got 2 on 1 page here. Dear Mama Wells Fargo Weaver, this is one I wrote to my mama. Things are fine in Mount Ida. Since you left, Father is starving to death. He can't find a can opener. Leonard Box told him to use Jacks or better. That's always a good opener. Where are all you poker players? Elsie Crack dropped by the house. She had on a new tight dress, and when she walked past all the fellows in front of the drugstore, you ought to heard the whistles. Someday those boys are going to whistle back at her. She showed us the new pictures she had made of herself. They're lovely. She looks just like General Grant. Except I think his beard's a little shorter. Ludlow Bing got a little poppy for his wife the other day. For his wife yesterday. Byron Ogg is out today trying to make the same deal. He got a puppy for his wife. Byron's trying to get that. All right. Byron and his wife have what we call in Mount Ida a 6-shooter marriage. Anybody in here got a 6-shooter marriage? He goes around acting like a Colt, and she looks like an old 45. I should have put a cushion on this stool. Father bought a saxophone last week, and yesterday he traded it for a cow. She makes the same noise and gives milk besides. Well, Mama, I must close now and go help your father, or go help Father. He and Grandpa Og are out in the backyard playing stickball. Grandpa's beating him with the stick and having a ball. That was my letter to Mom. Dear vacuum cleaner, Mom always said I whistle and pick everything up. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Leonard Box bought an automatic milking machine to milk his cows because he felt he was losing his grip. Yep, you get that one. A little slow. The other day, Leonard wanted to see how strong the machine was, so he stuck his finger in the suction cup to test it. His finger got stuck, and it took him 4 hours to get it out. Now he's the only man in Mount Ida who can sit in the living room and tickle his wife in the kitchen. When Leonard puts his finger on you now, you know it. Yeah. Wallace Sline dropped by on Monday, and every time he hears an auto horn, he's terrified. Your father asked him why, and he said that last week a man ran off with his wife in an automobile. Now every time he hears an auto horn, he's afraid she's coming back. He said he didn't mind this guy running off with his wife, but he sure misses his car. Ludlow Bean had to go to a psychiatrist. Seems he thinks he's in love with an octopus. When the doctor told Ludlow he can't marry an octopus, Ludlow said, well, Doc, that's terrible. What am I going to do with these 8 engagement rings?
Oh, gee.
Well, son, I must close now and go help your sister. She's been arrested. Seems she read a fashion hint that this season women won't wear their dresses any longer.
Oh.
I'd like to see that. Dear Eskimo, Mama always said one of these days I'd be sitting on top of the world.
Oh.
Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Your father's wives, the Mount Ida oddballs, threw your father a dinner last night. Unfortunately, he didn't catch it. But he did when he got home, and I saw his new suit, the only blue serge suit that I've ever seen with meatballs for buttons.
Oh.
At the dinner, your father kept complaining about the prices. They had the table right next to his.
Oh,
Leonard Box was there, and someone asked him why he washed his silverware in the finger bowl. He said it kept his pockets from getting soiled. Your father said to Leonard, how are things going? Leonard said, not bad. I am managing to keep my neck above water. And your father said, so I judge by the color of it. Dr. Leroy Hockey isn't a doctor anymore. He lost his license because he performed an illegal operation. Seems he opened Byron Ogg's head with a beer bottle. Wallace Line now has an orchestra at his restaurant, but the music is so bad that last night a waiter dropped a tray of dishes and everybody got up and started to dance. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He's over at the hospital due to a slight misunderstanding. He jumped out of an airplane without a parachute. Just before the flight, he said the pilot told him to put on a pair of shoes. You don't hear well. Ticking away. Dear Meringue, Mama always wanted me to be on top.
oh.
Things are fine in Mount Ida. She does go on. Bertie Rudd dropped by last week. She's going steady with an ugly policeman, but she says he'll do in a pinch. And from the looks of the bruises on Bertie, he'll do.
Oh.
Ludlow B just got out of jail. When your father asked him if he had any plans, he said, "Yep, 4. 3 banks and a post office." Lots of tourists are coming to Mount Ida these days for their rheumatism. One fellow got his in just one day. Lots of tourists are, I already read that. I'm repeating myself. You can tell it's the tourist season because they're closing the regular roads and opening up the detours. That sounds like Wyandot County, don't it? One tourist asked Grandpa Ogg where Mount Ida was. Grandpa said, "Don't move an inch and you're there." You can tell it's tourist season because they're closing the regular roads and opening up those detours. One tourist, I'm sorry, I read that already. Leonard Box has been pretty sick, so the doctor told him to take a pill before each meal and a cup of whiskey after. Let's see, so far, he's a few pills behind, but several months ahead on the whiskey. Leonard also lost his job as a local sports announcer. Manager of the station told him he sounded like he had marbles in his mouth. Leonard said that's because he has. All these years, Leonard thought his mouth was just an extra pocket.
Oh my.
Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. I've got to go out in the backyard and give him artificial respiration. Somebody told him to go soak his head. Love, Mama. Dear Tabasco, Mama always said I was hot stuff. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Elsie Crack dropped by yesterday. She had on a new low-cut gown. My, it was beautiful. Not the gown, but the flag tattooed on her chest. Elsie's worried though. She's got to add 2 more stars and she's run out of skin. I saw Wallace Swine this morning. He just lost 180 pounds. His wife left him. Seems she was out riding and the horse ran away with her. Wallace says he hopes they'll be very happy together. However, he does feel sorry for the horse. Poor thing will now lead a dog's life. Your father and I went over to Grandpa Ogg's for dinner last night. Their little grandson Clarence was there. My, but he's cute. He has his mother's eyes and his daddy's nose. But he got a spanking because he has his grandfather's teeth. It was very embarrassing. There were 5 of us for dinner and only 4 sets of teeth. Grandpa spent all night bruising an ear of corn. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He wanted to start the day off with a bang, so he connected a time bomb to his alarm clock. He did. Dear Gold Tooth, Mama always said I was just a flash in the pan. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Elsie Crack dropped by our house last night. She got mad when your father tried to remove her fur neck piece. Now, how was he to know it grew on her neck? She is wearing her hair in a new Italian hairdo. It's supposed to make her look like an Italian, and she does. Just like Rocky Marciano. She was wearing one of those new tight sheath dresses. Your father said he didn't know whether she was inside trying to get out or outside trying to get in. Oh, one thing I must say about Elsie, she's awfully good to her mother. She never goes home. She is wearing a lovely pair of pumps. You see, she has water on the knee.
Oh, gee.
They were actually those new alligator shoes. And she said she had a terrible time taking them off the alligator. When she got ready to leave, she put on her overcoat and then started looking all around. Your father said, "What's the matter?" She said, "That's funny. I'm sure I had a belt before I came in here." Your father said, "I didn't think that was licorice I smelled on your breath." Then your father found the belt. Well, he didn't actually find it. She gave it to him right in the eye. "Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. I washed out his eye with brandy, and he just sprained his tongue trying to lick it off." Ah, dear Stetson, my mama always said I was as mad as a hatter.
Oh.
"Things are fine in Mount Ida." She goes on. "Your father is out throwing snow off the porch." Fred Snow. Fred's been drinking again.
Oh.
They arrested him for trying to get into AA. Seems he was using an axe. Ludlow Bean has the same problem, though. Every day for 2 years he swore off. Finally he quit drinking, but now he can't stop swearing. When he visited Byron Ogg and his family last night, we had a good chicken dinner. Laying mash and cracked corn. Laying mash and cracked corn, a chicken dinner, you know, what the chickens ate. Oh boy, it's getting late. You wouldn't know their little boy Hazel, and aren't you lucky? No, you wouldn't know little Hazel. He's grown up another foot. Now he wears 3 shoes. They call him Tripod. The Mount Ida Winery is trying to hire him for grape crushing.
Oh, gee.
Now the hunting season is here. All the animals look at his tracks. Byron has to give little Hazel 10 cents a day to be good. "Made me real proud of you, son. When you were little, we didn't have to pay you anything to be good. You were good for nothing." "Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. The weevils got in his corn, and I have to help him strain it."
Oh.
I won't have to be sick for a week. All the grows out of her ear tonight. "Dear Haviland, Ma always said I had nice plates.
Oh.
Things are fine in Mount Ida." She goes on. "Byron Ogg has taken up finger painting. He paints the prettiest fingers you've ever seen. One time he painted a picture of his wife's fingers clutched in a fist. It was so lifelike, every time Byron saw it, he ducked. I hear Byron's wife is teaching weaving. She learned how by watching Byron come home at night. She said she doesn't object to the way he comes home at night. He is very quiet. But what wakes up the whole neighborhood are the 2 men carrying him. Elsie Crack lost her job at the cigarette factory. She kept putting the filters in the middle. I guess she just doesn't have it up front where it counts. Now she's taken a course in pottery making, and she has designed an Elsie Crack sauerkraut crock. Boy, try saying that after you've had a few. Unfortunately, the first dozen Elsie Crack crock. Oh, hell. Unfortunately, the first dozen Elsie Crack kraut crocks were cracked. You just thought that was gin. The bottle's a decoy. Her problem, what to do with a crock full of Elsie cracked kraut crocks. Meanwhile, your father is taking a course in patio cooking. You know how he likes concrete? He hasn't had any since he ate up the street last month. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. He's out in the yard where he's got a live cobra in a basket. And he's trying to hypnotize it with a flute. Nope, I'm wrong. Your father's in the basket and the cobra has the flute. Dear grapefruit, Mom always said I was an eyeful.
Oh.
Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. I saw Elsie Crack yesterday, and my, she looked like an Easter egg. hand painted and hard boiled. She just paid $100 to have her ancestors looked up. After she found out where they were, she paid $200 to have them hushed up. She claimed they came over on the Mayflower, but your father said, sure, the Mayflower van lines. She shouldn't be so snooty with us. Our ancestors go back to Columbus. Some of them even go back to Cleveland. One of them goes back to Alcatraz tomorrow. Ludlow Bean was stung by a swarm of bees. And for a week, he really had clothes on.
Oh.
They probably get worse. Last week, Leonard Box left Mount Ida by a rocket. Well, it really wasn't a rocket, but it worked out the same way. He borrowed Wallace Swine's suit of steel armor for a masquerade party, and on the way home, he stepped on a live wire with 50,000 volts in it. Orbit is a small town 7 miles north of here, and that's where he is. He wasn't hurt when he landed, fortunately. For him, he landed on his head. He came down in a used car lot, and a few minutes later, he was towed as a foreign car. He's going to have a coming out party as soon as somebody finds a big enough can opener. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. Someday, somebody gave him a World War I hand grenade, and he took it out to the barn. He wanted to make a cigarette lighter out of it. As soon as the smoke clears and the fire department puts out the blaze, I'll let you know how it made out.
Oh, dear.
Dear Dill, Mom always said I'd wind up in a pickle. I think I'm in it tonight. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Everybody's getting ready for the big Mount Ida Easter Parade. It was a toss-up between Elsie Crack and Byron All as to which one would play the Easter Bunny this year. Byron has long ears, and his wife sure makes him hop. But Elsie's nose twitches, and she's not a bad egg. However, Grandpa Ogg was finally chosen because he's the only one in Mount Ida who knows how to multiply. Bertie Rudd bought one of the new walking suits for Easter. The salesgirl said, will you wear it or shall I send it to your home? Bertie says, well, for what it costs, just let it walk home by itself. Leonard Box has gone into the real estate business now. He's draining Snyder's Swamp and turning it into a residential district of authentic early American homes. 1 and 2 bedroom caves. 1 and 2 bedroom cave. Early. He has named his new development Beverly Holes. Last week, Ludlow Bean bought a new book called How to Be a Bullfighter. He started practicing on Wallace Swine's prize bull. He should be out of the hospital tomorrow sometime. Ludlow says he made only one mistake. He should have let the bull read the book first. Well, son, I must close now and go help your father. We're having waffles, and I sent him out for honey. He just came in the door with a big bond on his arm. I said, you call that honey? And he says, well, I don't call it Frank. My knuckles still ache. Dear Boomerang, Mom always said I was quick with a comeback. Things are fine in Mount Ida. She goes on. Elsie Crack dropped by yesterday. She was passing out cigars. We were surprised because she's not married now. Then she said, it's a boy, 42 years old and 195 pounds. Next, she showed us her engagement ring. It's a beautiful black and blue ring right under her eye. She got it at an engagement with her new boyfriend's old girlfriend. Elsie said it was love at first sight, and son, you got to agree that Elsie's a sight. Your father's mad at me, though. Yesterday, we was looking in the window of the false teeth store, and your father pointed out a set he'd like to have. And he got mad at me because I told him he shouldn't pick his teeth in public.
Oh. Oh.
Bertie Rod was asked to give up her apartment for keeping a big record player. He was a 7-foot disc jockey. Bertie claims she's like any other girl, though. She wants to be loved and adored, not when she's old and ugly, but now when she's young and ugly. Bertie may become very rich, though. She's invented a new chicken soup. Only trouble is that chickens won't drink it. Well, son, I must close now. Go help your father. He's out in the backyard trying to put on a camel's hair coat. I don't think the camel likes it much, though. And last but not least, and it's almost a ring, or did it ring?
It ring.
I didn't hear it, Dave. You believe that? I didn't hear it.
15 minutes ago.
Somebody should have stopped me.
Yeah, that's too much fun.
Dear 5719846, Mama always wanted me to have a pen name. Things are fine in Mount Ida, and she goes on for the last time. I just broke a vase over your father's head when I found out his average income. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I really should complain about him, though. There's nothing he wouldn't do for me, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for him. That's the way we've gone through our long marriage. Nothing done for each other. Elsie Crack dropped by yesterday. My, she's such a lovely girl. Not at all two-faced. If she was, she wouldn't be wearing the one she's got on today. She's very musical, though. You should see the cords in her neck. Elsie was rather sad, though, when I saw her. Seems like her Uncle Clyde, who used to be a great swimmer, was killed in a dive. The dive was Joe Cutter's Barn Grill. Uncle Clyde was playing poker, and he died of 5 aces. The coroner diagnosed it as lead poisoning. I saw Leonard Box last week, and he had Jane Mansfield on one arm and Marilyn Monroe on the other. My, what a beautiful job of tattooing. Elsie's very mad at Leonard because he says Elsie is so bow-legged. Every time he sees her, he wants to grab her leg and make a wish. Elsie doesn't have very good shape. Without her Adam's apple, she wouldn't even have a curve. Well, son, I must close now, and me too, and go help your father. Grandpa Og told your father he had a head like a gourd, and your father told Grandpa if he didn't like his head, he could lump it, and he did. Thank you, letters from Mama. Now, I did want to share a few things about Cliff Arquette, a.k.a. Charley Weaver. We all know that, or we should know, that he fashioned Mount Ida from Cary, Ohio. He was actually born in Toledo, December 27th in 1905, and he died in 1974. He spent his childhood, a lot of his childhood, at his grandma Emma Clark's out on County Road 107, between Cary and Sycamore. And we have some photographs, or at least one I know of, at the museum over in Sycamore of Charley with the class at Timocty School. He used to go to school when he would come down visit his grandma. He would go to school with the Timocty group. So he loved this area very, very much. Of course, we all know Charley for his spot on Hollywood Squares. How many of you remember Hollywood Squares? Charley was always a center square. He also did a lot of radio in his early years, and he was a frequent guest on Jack Parr. Remember when Jack Parr had the show? He was on with Jack Parr quite a bit. His grandchildren, David, Patricia, and Rosanna Arquette, are all actors in Hollywood. And Steve Zender and I had a really nice conversation a few weeks ago for about a half hour on the phone. He has an extensive collection of Charley Weaver memorabilia over at the newspaper office in Cary. And I have not been over to see it yet, but I plan on going. Had a busy schedule here the last month or so and haven't had the opportunity, but Steve still does, of course, letters from Mama in the Cary paper. And the letters are ones that Steve contracts himself, although he has used some of Charley's original letters in his column over the years. But he has a permission of David Arquette and the girls to continue that column. So, and he talks with David a couple of times a year. I have a personal experience with Charley I want to share with you. In 1958 or 1959, I don't remember which year, and I have not been able to find the document. But when I was born, my father was a poultry and waterfowl judge and traveled all over the country at county fairs and state fairs judging. And I probably am one of the few people you'll ever meet that attended the Ohio State Fair in 1950 when I was about 3 days old. My father had a judging gig at the state fair, as always, and my mother had just gotten out of the hospital, and so me, my older brother, my father, my mother all went to the state fair. Now that continued as a family tradition clear up into the time I think I turned 16, and I stopped going with my father because then I knew more than he did. I've soon since found out that he knew a hell of a lot more than what I ever did. But in either 58 or 59, and when we went to the state fair, we just didn't stay a day. We usually stayed 2-3 days because he had to judge. And we would drive home at night and come back the next morning early. I mean, we would leave, at that time we were living in Lucasville where our family farm was. And so we would have to leave at like 3 o'clock in the morning to get up there. 23 was 2-lane highway in those days. So either 58 or 59 on one of our trips to the fair. Charley was there, Cliff Arquette was there. And he was trying to raise money to save the land that the Gettysburg battle was fought on in just outside of Gettysburg, PA. It was seriously in jeopardy of being sold to a developer to put up houses. There was a big housing boom, of course, still going on in the 50s. And it came very, very close to being sold. But Charley traveled to every state fair in the continental United States, that 58, 59, and he was selling for a donation a and I had to look this up because I couldn't remember exactly what the size was, but my mother bought me one. It was a paper that was 8.5 by 11, and it was a deed. And by your donation, I think it was $10. I have not found the one that my mother bought me, and maybe I don't have it anymore. But for that donation, in theory, you were going to own 1 square foot of the Gettysburg battlefield. And all that money then would go towards purchasing the original 271 acres that they were trying to buy and save. He did raise enough money to fulfill that. In 1959, Charley, along with President Dwight Eisenhower, and how many of you remember the name Bruce Catton? If you're a Civil War buff like I am, David is, he's gone now, but he wrote a lot of books about the Civil War, Bruce Catton. The 3 of them were charter founding members of an organization called, let's see, I think I wrote it down here. I guess I didn't write it down, but it was, oh yes I did here, Gettysburg Battlefield Preservation Association. Their founding date was 1959. So not only was Charley a great comedian, he was a huge Civil War buff. I mean a huge Civil War buff, clear up until his death in 1974. Currently that battlefield property is about 6,000 acres. But it had very humble beginnings thanks to Cliff Arquette as Charley Weaver. Again, I think those were selling for about $10 a piece. But that's my personal story. I got a chance to meet Charley that day. I've never forgotten it. One thing I do remember about him, he was dressed that day as Charley. But if you've ever seen a picture of Cliff Arquette, he was a nice looking man. He didn't have a mustache. His was fake too, much better than mine. But he was a nice looking man and a very kind and gentle individual and extremely funny. And if any of you remember the times that you saw him or heard him, I'm sure you would agree with me. That's about what I know about Charley Weaver. I have admired him from afar. What got me onto this, I'm a book nut. My wife will concede to that fact. And in fact, she keeps saying, "You have too many stacks." And I'd say, "Well, libraries have stacks, why can't I?" But I ran across one of Charley's books about a year ago, I think. And it was More Letters from Mama. And when I started reading them, it brought back a lot of memories, and I laughed until I couldn't see. And I immediately thought, I've got to do this as a program, because I just admired the man so much. It was cornball humor, but it was clean humor, and it was humor that you could tell anybody, and you didn't have to feel ashamed about it, or feel ill about doing it. So that's what got this whole thing started. I called Bonnie and asked her if she'd be interested in having me up to do this and share it with you folks, because if you're like me, especially now, having spent a lot of time in Wyandot County and being a part of Wyandot County, it has an extra special meaning because of the time that he spent in Wyandot County, and especially out in the country in the area that he did. So if you've got questions, I'll try to answer them. If anybody's got anything they want to share, I'd love to hear it. It's only 5:08. You know, it's not dark yet.
Have you seen the Charley Weaver wind up where he drinks?
We have one at the museum in
Okay.
Sycamore. Yeah, we have one over there. So yeah, when you get a chance, stop over to the museum. If you haven't seen, I'll give a little plug for the museum in Sycamore. Our new addition was put on about a year ago. It's now open and functional, and so we have three buildings, 3 nice large rooms, and we're real proud of it. So if you get an opportunity, stop over and take a look at it. Anybody else? Anybody got anything they want to share? Well, Bonnie, I guess that's about all damage I can do.
Well, thank you very much.
And my mustache didn't fall off. Now trying to get it off when I get home is another story.
You know, I could go on and on about how we enjoyed the evening, but I won't go on and on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mama.
You are very welcome.
A couple quick plugs for the museum down in Marion, which I'm a part of. We have a couple of events this year that I'd like to encourage you to attend if you can. I think this is our 14th year of doing Dinner with the Presidents. I know some of you have been there before. This year, it's always the first Saturday in November. This year, we are moving down to All Occasions in Waldo at their facility. So this will be something new for us, but I think it's going to work out well. I've got a great lineup of speakers this year. Mary Ellen Withrow will be there again to speak, as she has the last few years. And I tried to get some presidents involved that we haven't had speak for quite a while. I've got Teddy Roosevelt was supposed to speak last year, and he got ill right before the dinner, was unable to, but he will be speaking this year. And I'm working on a special guest. I can't divulge who that might be just in case it falls through. But I will say that all the seating with the presidents is sold out. That always goes quickly. That there are still plenty of general admission seats available. So please think about that. And in August, we have our First Ladies Luncheon. This will be, I think, our 9th or 10th year of doing the First Ladies Luncheon. And I've got some very interesting First Ladies this year. I have a young lady, James Buchanan was our only bachelor president who never married. And this year I have his niece is going to speak as his First Lady. She was actually the White House hostess during his 4 years in the White House. So, and that's in August, and I think it's the 8th, it's on a Saturday, and that'll be at Tri Rivers. So those are the 2 things we have coming up as far as events are concerned. Some of you were just at our event here a couple of weeks ago. We thank you for that. Other than that, the new exhibit this year in the atrium, the main atrium in the museum, is agriculture in Marion County. And we're featuring the Carey Hatchery, which was a staple in Marion County for years and years and years. The Richard Carey family, I don't think Richard's dad nor Richard has thrown anything away ever.
No.
That's true.
It's a great exhibit, but the whole atrium has been changed to kind of highlight agriculture in the county, so. Thanks again, I won't take any more of your time. Thank you for having me.
Well,
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thanks again.
And support all your local museums.
yeah.
We need the help.
I do have our